How much money is your business losing every day because of these 8 types of wastes? The harsh reality of life is that all businesses and all organizations create waste. And I'm not talking about garbage, the thing that we create every day just because living, because we eat, buy things, break things, things like that. The waste that I'm talking about is what is being produced as part of the day to day operations of your business or organization. Because of this waste, we lose money, we lose resources, businesses lose clients, sometimes we lose sleep if you're an entrepreneur, manager, CEO, and the saddest part of all, people may lose jobs because of these wastes. So without further ado, let's get into the 8 wastes. Back in the 1950s, Teiichi Ono was spending time trying to figure out how to make Toyota into the most efficient, the most effective car manufacturing company on the planet. He succeeded and as a result created a Toyota production system that is now known as lean manufacturing. As part of that process, he uncovered 7 types of waste that each manufacturing process needed to eliminate in order to make it more efficient and produce better quality cars, better quality products. These 7 wastes and this whole lean manufacturing process has been adopted across the board in many manufacturing organizations, factories, things like that. But also, over the last 30, 40 years, the lean process in itself has been adopted into the white collar work. Things like software development, financial services, creative agencies, advertising, and things like that. Just day to day office work. The 7 wastes that Taiichi Ono has uncovered are applicable in the manufacturing, and they also are applicable in the white collar work as well. In the last 20 years or so, there was another waste that was uncovered and added to the list that has a significant effect on how your organization, your department, your business will succeed in the future. This waste, if you don't eliminate it, will remove one important aspect that guarantees success in the future, and that is innovation. We will talk about that very important waste in the end, so stick around. The very first waste is present in all businesses, all organizations, all departments, and across all of the processes that we do. It's called the waste of waiting. Waiting is very easy to explain. We've all experienced it. For example, you go to a doctor, you sign in, sit down, and then you wait. You wait, and then finally they call you into another room, and then you wait some more, and then finally the doctor shows up. And it could take anywhere from half an hour to an hour, depending on how busy it is. So that is waste of waiting. In business world, the waste of waiting often manifests itself in, for example, waiting for a document to be approved. So if you have 5 people that need to approve the document, you have to send it to all 5 people, and then one person's on vacation, the other one is out of the office, another one is on a business trip, so getting access to the document is going to take time. So all of that is wasted time. And if the document, especially if there's urgency to get it approved, the way to solve it is to look at the process, whatever process you have, build a value stream map. So for example, you go from step 1, this is what I need to do, to step 10, which is value that you produce, and then map each step and figure out how much time it takes to do each step and see if there's any time that could be shortened, step eliminated, and that will reduce the waste of waiting. One of the best companies that does this, in my opinion, is Disney, but that's on the customer side. When I went to Disney last year, there are 2 types of rides there. So the one type of ride is there's many different types of rides, but there's 2 ways to get on the ride. There's one way where you go into a wait line, it'll tell you 50-minute wait. So you go in, you go through the little line. There's all sorts of interesting things to look at on the side to kind of help you pass time, but it's still wasteful. 50 minutes of your life waiting for a ride is wasteful. There's another way. You can get a Disney pass, and then you get like 3 rides per day or something like that. And then you can actually book the time that you'll have the ride. So if you want to go on the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, you pick the time, 2 p.m., and then off you go. You show up at 1:55, they let you in, you got on the ride, boom, finished. And that's reducing waste. So you've seen this probably happen on the callbacks for customer service, where you say, they ask you to leave a number, maybe pick a time, and then it'll call you back, so you don't have to sit there on the phone waiting for the customer service operator to answer and then deal with your problem. So that's one of the ways you can eliminate waste of waiting in your business. The second waste is waste of overproduction. This is another very simple waste to explain. Let's say you own a bakery, you make bread, and then you bake 100 loaves. But you only have 70 customers that come in and buy bread. And then now you have 30 loaves that you produced and you didn't sell. The next day, you do the same thing, 100 loaves, 60 customers come in, sell 60, now you have 40. The third day, bake 100 loaves, you have 75 customers come in. So by now you should be understanding that maybe you shouldn't bake 100 loaves. Maybe you should bake 80. And then if you run out, you run out. But your average seems to be around 70, so you're reducing the waste of overproduction. In the white collar business, in the office world, it's often, very difficult to kind of pinpoint the overproduction. But if you really think about overproduction in the office is making unnecessary documents, so creating more documentation that's needed. One very subtle way of overproduction is when you make presentations and you create these PowerPoint slides and then you fill them with information. Each slide is just tons of information. 99% of the time, you don't need all that information on the PowerPoint slide. First of all, people won't be able to read. There's too much. Second of all, when you put too much, it's very difficult to follow the main train of thought. It's very difficult to kind of understand what's happening and remember things. So putting more stuff into a PowerPoint slide is a waste of overproduction. So reduce, reduce, reduce. Less is more. That's the mantra of the waste of overproduction. Less is more at all times. So I was making toast this morning, put it in, cranked the lever, the heating lever to 4 or 5, I can't remember, push it in, off I go, making toast. Toast comes back up, not dark enough, not toasted enough, so I push it in again, and then I go on to make coffee. Then bada bing, bada boom, it comes back, I look at it, it's burnt. Oh man, and I don't have any more bread. So I take the toast out and I start scraping all the burnt stuff off it. I don't really like the burnt stuff. And then put the butter on, put some jam, and eat the toast. The scraping part of the toast, that's rework. And that's number 3, waste number 3 on our list. And this rework, this particular example, is because I made the rework happen. I toasted it the second time, but I didn't turn the notch down to 2, so it just toast a little bit extra rather than do the full cycle. So that's rework, and that was unintentional rework. In businesses like manufacturing, rework is often easy to spot. You make something, you make a mistake, and then you have to redo it. In the office environment and non-manufacturing environments, rework sometimes is difficult to spot, but then if you really come back and think about it, is if when you have to go and you give a piece of work to somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing, and then it comes back and then you have to redo it. That's rework. Or somebody makes a mistake because they were told to do it one way, and then you have to go and redo it because that way was the wrong way. So this is waste of rework. And it happens pretty much across the board, everywhere. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's deliberate, where somebody actually tells you to go and redo it because maybe they don't like you, whatever other reasons. Rework costs a lot of money, especially if there's extra steps in the process and you have to do it all the time. So you might have 5 editing steps before you release a document. So instead of having one, you make the document, edit it, and then go, you'll edit it too much, narrow it down too much. So that's rework. Rework costs money, rework costs resources, and rework causes frustrations. So we need to figure out how to eliminate it. The best way to eliminate it is, again, to look at your processes and figure out where rework happens and remove it. And then if there is a mistake in something that you did, figure out how you did the mistake and then write it down so the next time that mistake doesn't happen. That reduces rework. The other day I was working on some stuff in my backyard and then I needed a hammer So I went to my garage, which is in the front of the house, got the hammer, come back, and then I realized that I needed some nails. Again, went back to the garage, took the nails, came back, started working, hammering. One of the nails bent. I couldn't pull it out with my hammer, so I needed pliers. So I went back to the garage, grabbed the pliers, and came back, grabbed the pliers, pulled the nail out, fixed the problem. These back and forth movements from the backyard to the garage, the trips that I made, this is what's called a waste of motion. Is when you go and get tools, things that you need to do work, and every time you have to go and do something, you have to go far to actually get the instrument or deliver something. That's called the waste of motion. The longer the distance, the bigger the waste of motion. Now, I could have just brought in my toolbox, but I was tired at that time in the morning, so my brain wasn't working. So one way to solve it is to bring the toolbox with you. As a matter of fact, when you go to a mechanic, bring your car in, they have these bays for the cars, and then they have these carts with all the tools so they can pull them around to different cars so they don't have to go and fetch all those sorts of tools. If they have to go and look for tools every single time they needed to fix the car, replace oil, whatever it is, then it would take a lot longer to service the car because they would always have to run back and forth finding tools, and it would cost you a lot more money. So eliminating waste of motion reduces the amount of time that it takes to service your clients, for example, and also reduces your cost, and then you can pass that cost on to the client and make it a little bit cheaper. In the office environment, it's often difficult to pinpoint these things because there's no tools that we kind of use that create waste of motion. But one of the ways is, for example, if you're stuck on a problem and then you go and you ask one of your friends who's in a different cubicle or in a different office to ask them a question: how do I fix this? You get the answer, you come back, you try it, doesn't work, then you go back and you ask another question, say it didn't work, how do I do this? I got a different error, whatever it is. Get the answer, come back, try it, doesn't work. These trips back and forth is a waste of motion. One way to fix it is to bring your friend over and say, hey, can we sit down for 20 minutes, figure this out together so I have to run back and forth. There's another way, subtle way, that a waste of motion kind of creeps up in the office environment, and that's the email. So if you send an email asking a question of somebody, and then you get a reply, and the reply is not satisfactory or it doesn't solve the problem, and it's the same thing back and forth, all these emails, it's a waste of motion, even though it seems minuscule. But in the end, emails coming in to the person who we are bugging, they get distracted, they lose focus on the things that they're working on. So you're creating other wastes in that from this waste of motion. So if you can ask all the questions in one email, that's going to eliminate the waste of motion and make things a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient. So that's waste of motion. Let's talk about the next one in the next part. One of the reasons why Walmart has been so successful over the last 30 years, and indeed why it took over pretty much all of North America and beat out all the rivals, was because they were able to eliminate the waste of transportation. You see, back in the day, all of the little stores, the department stores, were scattered all over the country, but they could only be in bigger cities because the warehouses were located in the bigger cities, and then delivering goods to these department stores from the warehouses to any other store cost money, so they had to be closer to the warehouses. And therefore, the smaller towns didn't have the capabilities to have the big department stores in them, because it costs way too much money to deliver goods from the warehouse to the store. Walmart succeeded by creating this hub and spoke system where they would put a bigger warehouse in the middle of an area of small towns, and now they could put Walmarts in all these small towns, and this big warehouse would hold all of the inventory, and they would deliver on over much shorter distances the goods that these department stores in the smaller towns needed, thereby, first of all, taking over the smaller towns and then moving into the bigger towns and taking over the competition with the exact same system. That was waste of transportation removed, right? We have waste of transportation visible in all of our business processes, where we have to deliver value from where it's created to the client. In the manufacturing world, when you manufacture goods, it's very easy to spot it. How long does it take for the product to get to the customer? How many hubs they have to go through? How many delivery systems it has to go through, and all of that. In office world, the waste of transportation is often very similar, but a little bit different, because delivering goods over to the client over the internet is very quick, right? You just send them the email, send them the PDF or whatever it is. But sometimes we put these blockers in between where you require the client to jump through hoops to get the actual product, so that increases the distance, the transportation distance that the product takes to get to the customer. So one of the ways to eliminate it is to look at how long it takes, what's the distance between finished good and the end destination where the client is, and how long it takes to deliver that, and then see if you can shorten it. See, maybe you can move the production a little bit closer to the client and then deliver these things. Maybe you can move the fulfillment center, like what Amazon did. They put fulfillment centers in all these big cities, and now they're able to deliver their goods very quickly at a very cheap price. FedEx did the same thing when they did the overnight. It's free when you absolutely has to be there overnight. That's their slogan. That's what they did. They put these hubs all over the country so then they could deliver things a lot quicker with the plane and then with their trucks right there and then. So that's waste of transportation. It will save you money if you figure out how to shorten the how long it takes for you to deliver your product to the customer. I was recently on a thread of 75 emails, and it was 75 emails to solve a pretty simple customer problem. It originated with one customer had an issue. Customer couldn't activate a piece of software, and ended with, believe like a vice president of the company putting the foot down and saying, okay, let's get this fixed. Customer is very important. I don't care if you have to do it manually. Let's do it. These 75 emails, these 75 steps that you have to go through in order to fix a very simple problem for the customer, and then, had to be all the way at the top, the executive level, the decision made to just get it done. That's called the waste of processing. And one of the ways the waste of processing manifests itself is in how many steps, the number of steps it takes to produce some sort of output. If it takes 5 steps, very quick, very easy. For a simple process, for a complicated process, it might take more. But a lot of the times, there are steps that are either useless or redundant or create rework or delay, how long certain things take, so create the waste of transportation. So all these steps all together create the waste of processing. In manufacturing, again, easier to spot because it's, you can actually count the steps, how long it takes something to get delivered. But in the office world, sometimes we don't really think about it. Like this example of the email, we know that it shouldn't take 75 emails to get something as simple as activation of a product fixed, but we don't really think about it as a waste of processing. This was a process, even though it was a one-time process, although it probably happened before, maybe with smaller number of steps, but still a significant number of steps. But still, it's still a process, and it will likely happen in the future. So one of the ways to reduce the waste of processing is to look at the process, map it out, see which parts are not needed, and create all sorts of other waste, remove it, and then shorten the process, make it a little bit more efficient, a little bit more effective, and then that will eliminate the waste of processing. And as a result, this is a very special waste, because if you reduce the number of steps it takes for a process to complete, you're actually reducing other wastes, the waiting, the motion, the transportation, the rework, all of that as part of fixing this one big process, the waste of processing. So look at your processes, figure out why there's so many steps, see if you can remove some. A while back, a friend of mine who was working for a drug pharmacy brought in a bunch of batteries. And when I say a bunch, I would say 1,000, probably more. And he goes, hey, do you want batteries? I'm like, hey, yeah, sure, why not? Batteries, AAAs, AA's, all sorts of types of batteries. So naturally you ask, hey, how come you have all these batteries? And my friend said that the pharmacy, had a contract with one battery manufacturer, and then now they switched over to another. So all the batteries that they had now they couldn't sell, so they were giving them away to whoever wanted them because they couldn't just dump them for some reason. And I asked, well, how many batteries are there? He says thousands. Whatever you want, I'll bring it to you. So we asked, there's a bunch of us, we asked for all sorts of batteries, and then just kept on coming and coming and coming. I ended up with like over 2,000 batteries. Then I give it away to people. This example highlights the waste number 7, which is the waste of inventory. So what happens is you sell something, then you buy too much of that product, and now all of a sudden the demand drops, new trend comes in, you get a new contract, that exclusive contract, like for example here with the pharmacy, you get a new contract with a different manufacturer, and so now you're competing, and all the inventory that you've purchased now you can't sell because the company says you can't sell this anymore, so now you have to give it away. Or the trend, new trend comes in, and all the old t-shirts that you had that had some sort of logo that was popular or some sort of warning, now it's not, so now you have left with all this inventory. In car manufacturing world, in the Toyota world especially, the too much inventory creates all sorts of waste and resources. So they solve that problem by having, instead of push system where you just buy, by having a push system where you buy a bunch of inventory, and then so just in case you don't want to run out, and then you use it up as you build the cars, and sometimes you end up with a lot left over. They change it to a pull system where you go and buy more when you need it, when you run out. So you have all these tires, you're building the car, you have small amount of inventory on hand, you use it all up, call the manufacturer, bring more, the manufacturer brings more, you keep going. So that's one of the ways to solve the waste of inventory. In the office, it's often hard to pinpoint what is the inventory that you might have. I mean, it's all emails, it's all PowerPoints and things like that. So it's hard to kind of understand where can you have too much of. But one good example is, and I think everybody goes through this, is buying, I guess, too many books, right? You buy too many books and you don't read them. So that's a waste of inventory. Or you buy these training resources, all of them, all at once because you get a deal, but your employees don't take them or don't learn from them or whatever. Something changes, and then all of a sudden this training is now irrelevant anymore because of the change in the government standard or whatever it is. So that's a waste of inventory. And then again, the way to deal with it is to figure out a just-in-time system where you can buy just enough that you need for now and maybe for a little bit in the future, but you don't buy so much that you can end up with, holding the bag because you bought way too much and people now don't want it. The demand has dropped. Finally, the waste number 8, the one that will cost you in future business if you don't address it immediately. And for that, I want to tell a personal story. A long time ago, I worked as a software engineer at a university. And part of my job was to build applications and, come up with new ideas for how to solve problems for the university, automate processes that weren't automated, manual processes, things like that. And I had a very good boss. My boss basically said, hey, Terry, you're smart. Here's a problem. Go figure it out. Amazing. And that's what I did. I thrive on trying to figure out a problem, make things better, build things. After that, after a while, my boss retired, and my role as the innovator, as the thinker, as the person who would kind of go out there and kind of make things better, started to diminish. At some point, the new administration had this attitude of like, yeah, let's be all friends, but you know what? We have our jobs, and your job is to be a cog in the wheel, not to figure out which way to drive. And, at some level you understand, yes, I have to be the cog in the wheel. I have to build software that you tell me to build. And at another level, because, of the previous experience of like, yes, here's the freedom, go do it, I know you can do it. And now that freedom being taken away, it begins to kind of gnaw on you. And you feel like you're being underutilized, underused. As a matter of fact, the feeling that I had probably have been had by many others across many different organizations. And this particular instance is related to this waste, the waste of intellect. You have a lot of smart people in your organization. You have a lot of experienced people in your organization. And what your job as a manager, as an entrepreneur, as a leader is to figure out how you can use those people's experience and intellect in order to innovate, to make things better, to solve problems, to fix whatever needs fixing, to come up with new product ideas. If you don't value the intellect, the experience that you have within the organization, and you either bring in outside consultants to help things, or to set direction and figure out how to do work, or you completely ignore the advice of the people that actually do the work, you will begin to alienate those people, and those people, the smart ones, will leave, and they will leave and they will go and innovate somewhere else, maybe your competitors, and maybe those competitors will take over your business, because the waste of intellect is one of the biggest wastes that happens across the board, and it has probably one of the most significant impact on the future of any business, of any department. Because if the smart people leave, then you have no innovation. If the people who want to make things better, innovate, do things, leave, you have no innovation. If you have no innovation, other businesses that do have innovation take over and put you out of business. So address that immediately. Find the people who want to help, find the experienced people, get them to fix the problems, ask them what needs to be fixed, ask them for their ideas. Ask all of your employees for their ideas, because everybody across the board who works for you has something to contribute, has a unique insight for to fix this problem, to make things better, to innovate, to create a new product. So imagine not asking anything and just you trying to do all the work. It's very difficult, very hard. You're probably not going to succeed unless you're super, super smart. And even then, by yourself, it's very difficult. It's a lot easier to ask people for advice, see what you don't ask them to help you see what you don't see, and then actually get them to do it. And then as a result, together you will grow closer, you'll have better culture, and you will innovate and make things better, and then succeed and beat your competition. This has been the 8 types of waste that are present in your business, your organization, across all your processes. If you like to learn more about how to improve your organization and make things better, about continuous improvement and all topics around that, click here or here for your next video, and I will see you next time. Of course, don't forget to subscribe if you like this video. See ya.